So this honestly is a warning to the Green Party. I generally do actually mean this, that you are now getting an influx of people who, as far as they are concerned, if you are not as ideologically aligned as they are, you should be, first of all, not be in the party, not allowed to run in positions, and should you ever speak ill of any, shall we say, the God King himself, Jeremy Corbyn, um, as we saw very recently, one Green, few prospect MP who was standing, did years ago. Bear in mind, um, you cannot. You must now bend the knee to this new faction, and this has been the Green Party's new idea. That instead of going after the Conservatives at the next election, because they're the ones most responsible for the current UK woes, instead we're going to go after the Labour Party. The party that's not in power, that's in opposition. And we're going to welcome all these disaffected people from the Labour Party into our ranks. Um, and that's not going to cause any problems, especially traditionally with your original core audience, primarily the environmentalists. Um, yeah, I'm sure those two parties are going to get along fine. I don't think so. Oh boy, I do not think so. And let me tell you, the Green Party is generally headed to a fight that is going to be incredibly self-destructive. Incredibly self-destructive. And I warn you that right now, because we're going to go over today this. This comes from Bright Green. And this is like think of this as like the conservative home of the Green Party in a way. Um, but I just want to remind you that, remember, guys, there was no problem with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and yet now all these people have been moving, over to the Green Party. Um, there's a story here that literally says the Green Party needs to get serious about anti-Semitism. All I'm going to say is, how come all of a sudden there's a problem with anti-Semitism in the Green Party, where you've been, getting all these, disaffected, or you know, Corbynistas joining your party now? all, all I'm going to say is, seems kind of suspicious. But remember, there was no problem with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Anyway, we're going to go over this because I think it's kind of fun to sort of poke holes at these people. And to be honest, the Labour Party doesn't consider the Green Party a threat. I think, quite rightly so. But to be honest, if they're going to sort of throw stones at Labour, well, I feel obligated to sort of throw stones back at them. So, um, here we go with this, because, like I say, this is going to be fun, and we'll go through on this. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. Like I say, links down below, the Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the YouTube Pony Club as well. So, here we go. So, 7 years ago this month, I made the difficult decision to leave the Green Party and join Labour. Again, you've got to think some of these people who are really following Corbyn and following this, because remember, at the moment, there is a really strong move by the Green Party, by these Corbynistas, to push the Green Party not to stand in Corbyn's seat. Now, why are they, if they want to win everywhere, as apparently they are capable of apparently doing, even though, as we've said before, never really proven that, um, why are you now not going to stand against Jeremy Corbyn? Remember, Jeremy Corbyn is standing as an independent at the next election. He's not affiliated to any party. Just again, just a question, guys. So, having spent those 5 years active in the Greens, I switched parties largely because Corbyn had been elected Labour leader. I saw a once in a generation chance to elect a socialist PM. And again, why can't we not do that again? Momentum showed that actually creating a youth movement, getting them involved in party political politics, getting Corbyn elected is still possible. It is still doable. This whole idea that, oh, it's not possible, it's not doable anymore, is ridiculous. And it is partly because they met what is party political politics. It exists in every single political party, even the Green Party. As much as they would like to deny it, there is party political politics in the Green Party. It happens. And when they met that, they realized that throwing themselves around like a bull in a china shop, saying Labour is now a socialist party, when, as many people have said before, you can't have a socialist party under our particular, system at the moment of first past the post. It's not going to work because Labour has to be a big tent party for everyone on the left. And unfortunately, a lot of people still can't get that through their heads. But back to it. But ultimately, that project was a disaster. Why was it a disaster? I notice you're not talking about why that was a disaster. Anyway, Corbyn lost twice, let's say that, and was replaced by a Blairite. Leftists were excluded from the party at all levels. No, they weren't. Many of them left. You look at why many of these leftists were, quote, excluded. There were legitimate reasons for many of them. They just don't like to talk about it. But no, there is still a perfect place for leftists in the Labour Party. This is the big lie that many of these people are now spreading, that there is no room for leftists in Labour. And yet, I'm in. You've got everyone involved in the Labour Social who is on that. You've got people who are actively involved in leftist movements. In South Yorkshire, you have Labour and Cooperative, a part of the Labour Party that really focuses on like cooperative like businesses and ownerships. They have candidates standing for local and regional mayoral elections. They've even got MP candidates. And yet, no room. All these leftists being, chucked out of the Labour Party. Again, as I said when I was talking with No Justice, not my experience when I interact with people in Labour. That's not the experience. And I have to say and call it out for what it is, that it seems to be quite a lie to say there's no point. You need to go do something else. So, and of course, Labour moved substantially to the right in terms of policies and values. What were those policies and values that we moved to the right on? Corbyn was even himself excluded from the Parliamentary Labour Party. Why was he removed? Again, be honest with the audience and tell him why he was removed. In every respect, Corbynism was a failure. And my tactic of joining to support him was a failure too. Without question, I eventually drifted away from the Labour Party, feeling directionless, adrift, and politically hopeless. Here's the thing, and why Corbynism failed. All they focused on was the idea, if we get a socialist MP elected, everyone will fall in line and everyone will start marching to our drum. That's not what happened. Momentum and Corbyn and the rest of his team started acting like a bull in a china shop, expecting every other Labour MP to fall in line. But as we've said before, Labour was not a socialist party. For it to succeed and to be electorally viable in this current electoral climate, you have to be a big tent party of all the left. You cannot just say we're only going to be socialists. But anyway, at least there is the admittance that Corbynism was an absolute failure. Glad on you for that, because a lot of people on the left still can't admit that. So, as Yoda observed in The Last Jedi, that failure is the greatest teacher. And the disastrous failure of Corbynism taught me, essentially, what the Greens that the Greens are the future of the left. So instead of rethinking and thinking, gee, what could we learn from the failures of Corbynism? Why didn't it work? And the fact that the very same systems that allowed for Corbyn to become prime minister, to be elected leader of the elected leader of the Labour Party, are still there. It's that they gave up because they acted in such a way that they alienated every other faction in the Labour Party. That they didn't try and get other socialist MPs elected. They just focused on the leadership, expecting that all to work. That is really the message of failure when you look at the Corbynism. And instead, now we go to what, the Green Party, a party that, let's face it, most people in the UK do not take seriously as a political party. Because, oh boy, when their policies come out, we'll go over them, we'll point out inconsistencies, why they're bad. And trust me, what do you have to say to people like Greens for HS2, which publicly said in one of their statements that if we back the calling for the immediate suspension and construction of HS2, we look like an absolute party of lunatics. That's not me saying that. That was Greens for HS2. A green political faction. Anyway, first, I should explain what I mean by failure. Obviously, Corbyn lost the 27 and 2019, but it also failed internally too. Holy moly! An admittance of what happened. It was given a golden opportunity to reform and strengthen the democratic structures of Labour, making it friendlier to the left. Except they didn't even make it friendlier to the left, because if you weren't that particular type of leftist, you weren't considered to be one of them. Corbyn and his allies bottled it totally. Be careful, or else they'll be coming after you next. Bending to the will of the irreconcilable Labour right at every stage. Really, they bended to the will of the Labour right at every stage. Open selection for MPs was blocked. The leadership election process was barely altered. I mean, the exact same leadership process that got Jeremy Corbyn elected. Anyway, the power of regional boards and the NEC to overrule local parties was left unchanged. That is how all regional parties work. I think it's pretty much the same in the Green Party as well. The Parliamentary Labour Party continued to be a bastion of Blairites, and proportional representation was firmly opposed, even by Corbyn as well. But, can't mention that. So after 5 years of a left-wing leader, the Labour left is now weaker than it was in 2015. No, it's not. If anything, the Labour left right now is probably stronger than it was in 2015. But there you go. This continues the whole myth that the Green Party trying to spin, and of course, the disaffected Corbyns, that you can't work internally with the Labour Party. It's just, quote, pointless. But as I said, what about Labour and Cooperative? There are many other left-wing groups within Labour that are still there and affecting change. So, what is the lessons from this? My takeaway is that Labour structurally is incapable of being reformed, especially now. This isn't the USA where socialists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez can win state-run primaries against right-wing incumbent Democrats. Except there are different ways we do it. Of course, we're not the US. There are massively different ways we can do it. And bear in mind, there are a lot of lefties who hate her at the moment for what she's doing. She was in a book recently where she was really, really angry that so many leftists, of all the things that she had done, had been taking credit and not giving her the credit for it. So again, there's a lot more really going on in the US with Cortez than people really want to admit. But there you go. So in the UK, Labour's all-powerful national executive will just simply block you from running if you are left-wing. Where's the proof? Like, no, where's the proof for that? Because again, there are people who are running who are left-wing. There are people right now, members of the current Labour Party, who are MPs who are left-wing. Just, once again, I think covering for failure. And of course, if by some miracle you manage to make it through the selection process, because obviously, you're left wing, you made it through the selection process, then of course you'll be subjected to the Labour whip, which, as we have seen, can be withdrawn at a moment's notice if you challenge Starmer. So, who has challenged Starmer? What exactly are they challenging Starmer on? Right now, the shadow business secretary really openly challenged Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Has he had the whip removed? Again, the spinning of fallacy of a Labour Party that isn't the reality, and I think the lived reality for many of us who are in the Labour Party, who are left-wing, and who do see these people who are left-wing working in Labour to do good things. So, the path for democratic socialists, then, is to challenge Labour externally. Beat them in the electoral contests that they cannot be controlled by Starmer, and this will give the left an independent voice in councils, devolved legislature, and in the Commons. This won't be easy, but it is the only way. Yes. Yes. The UKIP solution. The UKIP solution. Okay, here's the first thing. How many Labour MPs are generally going to threaten walking over to the Green Party? That's the first thing. There's none. There's none. No one in a month of Sunday in an elected MP in the Labour Party would walk over to the Green Party. It's just not going to happen. And live in that fantasy all you like, but it ain't going to happen. Councils, well, yeah, you do very well in council elections, mostly because of how bad turnout is. Like, you can be elected for a councillor, as we've said many times before on this channel, 300 votes. It does not take a lot to get 300 votes in some places. And again, the devolved legislature, they've again not been successful, of course, in that. And then, of course, in the Commons, where again, they have been failing on that for years. They've only ever had one MP, Caroline Lucas, and she's left. By the look at the polls, they're going to lose that seat. And the other seat that they're looking, I think Brighton's, not Brighton Central, Bristol Central, looks like it's going to be a close race. But ultimately, will they be able to keep on and hold that seat as long as they did with like Caroline Lucas, who, let's face it, after a while wasn't really running on the Green Party ticket, but running under her own name, just that she was a member of the Green Party. Oh, that's just the reality, guys. But there you go. But, you continue with that plan. So, if one accepts this conclusion, the left, one is left with two choices. So the first is to start a new socialist party. Again, you can't. Under our current system, it's impossible. But if you want a really good example of a labor movement that is really pushing hard for PR and brought a lot of good for PR and brought certainly the name of PR into the Labour campaign and into Labour more and more, then Labour for PR. Again, we can't work internally with the Labour Party. Labour for PR, prime example of where you can. So, breakthrough, respect. Wait a minute. Respect the George Galloway backed vehicle, his own personal vehicle, his own grift machine. Okay. I wouldn't even list respect if I was talking about these, but okay. The Socialist Labour Party. The Socialist Labour Party? But I thought it was impossible for such a thing to exist. Left Unity, the Scottish Socialist Party, all were formed to challenge Labour from the left. But I ultimately consider this a waste of time. Yes, campaigning and trying to effectively bring change, waste of time. If you meet even the slightest resistance, give up. It's a waste of time. And honestly, that's how it feels. It does seriously feel that these people give up at the first moment's notice. The second that there's the slightest resistance, oh no, that's it, movement over, done. Really does feel like that. Really does feel like that when they say this stuff. Really, really does. But again, there are so many movements within the Labour Party who are trying to affect and bring change. And change takes time. It takes a lot of work. People spend their entire lives being completely and utterly nameless, trying to campaign for change, to bring change, and in these types of groups. And they die probably knowing that they got further with that years of effort, maybe trying to get a little bit further so that someone else can come along and be completely perfectly nameless and work within these movements to once again advance these causes. But no, we don't want to put the time in. We don't want to put the time and effort in that takes. This is honestly how it feels when I see this, when I hear people talking about this. It's how it comes across. It really does. So, not only would it take decades to build the infrastructure and reputation of a new party and turn it into a serious force, an attempt that would always probably fail anyway, but every new leftist party in the past 50 years has collapsed quickly enough due to bitter infighting and or personality disputes, all except one. Um, I've got bad news for you. I got bad news for you. The Green Party has had its own infighting and it has had its own personal disputes. The idea that it hasn't, and bear in mind, it does not take too much digging to find these infighting and disputes. Greens for HS2 is an amazing example of this bitter infighting where the green environmentalist faction consistently derided the Greens for HS2, calling them lunatics, idiots, that they shouldn't be part of the party, that they were infiltrating the Greens. This is what happens. This idea that this is, the Green Party is all perfect and hunky dory, guys. Just remember, a couple of weeks ago, we covered the Green MP who dared to say that Corbyn was not a good MP and was forced to bend the knee to these people. Anyway, since their formation in 1972, the Greens in England and Wales have been occasionally an uneasy alliance of socialists, left liberals, and ecologists, although I would argue far, far more that they are the alliance of green ecologists more than anything else. With their socialist contingent becoming much larger in the past 2 decades. Their values are unquestionably left-wing. Their policies lean to the left of the 2019 Labour manifesto. Then why weren't you with the Greens back then? And also, what are these policies? Because being anti-nuclear, but also now changing your stance to want to be in NATO has ruffled a lot of feathers within the Green Party. And yes, I have been doing a lot of research on the Green Party recently in preparation for probably future conversations about this. But there you go. But the Greens have also achieved the solo distinction of avoiding, again, bitter infighting that has consumed and wrecked other left-wing organizations. No, it hasn't. It has happened. They have had their divisions, sometimes big ones, and even as their counterparts on the further left have utterly collapsed, the Greens have patched up their spirits and kept moving slowly forward. You know why? You know why this has happened? Because the Greens' core of voters is environmentalists. So that has been always their key area. Whenever these other people, these socialists, these left liberals have come in, had their fights, those ecologists have stayed there. Primarily because they view the Green Party as the political wing of many of the UK's environmentalist movements. And they view it as a political tool to voice their concerns. That's why it has, quote, survived and continued on. So it has not relied on these socialists, these left-wing liberals. So this suggests to me that they are doing something uniquely right, both organizationally and politically. No, they're not really. They're not at all, but there you go. Again, work of fiction there. At the same time, the Greens are in a unique position to be the only nationwide left party to exercise actual political power. The Greens have led a municipal council in Brighton twice, led multiple other councils, and participate in coalitions across England and Wales. So, congratulations, you've had power at a local council. Do you really own all those councils? No. I don't think you even control Brighton at the moment. Like I say, every single time they crow about how good we are at having local success at councils, they fail every single time when it goes to a national. So, with the party gaining over 350 council seats between 2019 and 2022, and gee, who did they gain those seats from? They gained those from the Conservatives. The number of Greens is now increasing in power and making a practical difference to local politics, and it will only continue to increase all the way, which is to say that they are undeniably a viable, growing force in England, even under the first past the post. This has been the Green claim for years. Look at how all these councils we control. Surely this year is going to be the year where we finally get multiple Green MPs, sorry. Yeah, never really happened. So, thus have I been convinced. And again, if you were convinced by that, then wow, I've got some magic beans. I'm sure you'd love to buy from me if that's all it took to convince you. Wow, I've got some magic beans to sell you. Thus, I have been convinced that the best hope for democratic socialism in Britain is to build the Green Party and keep it on the left wing trajectory. And again, what exactly left wing policies and those left wing trajectories are you going to keep? So this may not, of course, immediately bear fruit in the next general election, although the chance of a second Green MP is high. You're going to lose your other Green MP, so you're not going to have two, you're going to have one. And that's even in doubt. So it will be hilarious if they get zero MPs for the next parliament. Again, it will be fun. But with the British left now facing a lengthy period in the political wilderness, it is now time to build and strengthen a party that can give voice to those political ideas on a national stage. They already do exist. It's called the Labour Party. Congratulations. There's many movements you can join within the Labour Party that you can be a part of to build those left-wing ideas. You do not have to be a political voice in the wilderness. I'd always do not agree with the Greens on every issue, but I align with their values and principles far more than those of Keir Starmer. And again, why Keir Starmer? Why just focus on Keir Starmer? Because we are in a parliamentary system. This is not a presidential. This is not a presidential system. You are not electing Keir Starmer to be president. You are in a parliamentary system. You are electing MPs, and it is the number of MPs that decides who wins that system. And in the next parliamentary system, we are probably going to see a very large progressive majority. And here's the thing. The more people vote Labour at the next election, the more we destroy the Conservatives at the next election, the more this clears the stage for at least a decade or more of getting some really good progressive stuff done. So, there is also one more final point that has led me to the Greens. The prospect of proportional representation. With the Labour conference calling on Starmer to back PR, the prospect of PR being enacted is now higher than it has ever been. Really? Considering you've now got this happening, why is the prospect of PR enacting being now higher than it has ever been? It is because of Labour for PR, because of all the work that they have done. You are claiming credit for something which you had no hand in. Labour for PR deserves so much credit for the work that they have done for over a decade. And yet, if the Green Party are going to take credit for them somehow being like the true bringers of PR, no, they don't deserve any of the credit of it. So, with the prospect of being higher as have been, I would thus agree that leftists do need a political home. Not only that we agree with, but also has the experience to win under PR and successfully govern in coalitions. The Greens have never, quote, successfully governed in a national coalition. National politics is a world of difference, and the Greens are so inexperienced when it comes to this. And like I say, we'll get to it when it comes to their manifesto. It's going to be fun. Um, so the Greens have proven that, quote, time and time again. Again, no, they haven't. They really haven't. Your call that, oh my God, we are a growing force. It's going to be inevitable. Green tide, people. Green tide. Yeah. They have done this multiple times. They did this in the what was it after the first Blair election? What was the first Blair election? What was it? 2000 and what is it? 97, 98, 99, 2000. Yeah, it was like the 2001 general election. They were claiming that once again there was going to be this great big green wave in the exact same language this person has just used now. Never happened. But don't worry, guys. Green wave is coming. Green wave. Anyway, and of course, practically speaking, I believe that the Greens are the only party that the left could actually succeed. And helping them build that is far more effective use of our time. Really, you're going to help try and build a party that is seen by most people as a party of protest that is mainly sort of environmentalist, is not really seen as a serious political entity. You're going to build your time spending that. Well, congratulations, but imagine if you spent that time in Labour trying to do the same thing with, a party that is actually going to be in power, that is actually taken seriously. I know which party I would rather be in. So, in summary, as democratic socialists who have been alienated by Labour, no, I can't, you've alienated yourselves, I find myself facing four choices. Toiling away in Labour, waiting to be expelled. Just that language alone just sums up how ridiculous this is. Oh yes, you'll toil away in Labour and you'll just wait to be expelled. No. Um, Again, it's a lie, it's a fantasy that these people are now like trying to concoct, but it's not true. Spending decades building a new socialist party from scratch, falling into the political apathy and despair, or joining and building the Greens. And again, you might as well fall into, basically try and build a new political party from scratch. Because if you are going to go into this, if you are going to try and make the Greens a serious political party, then you're going to have to broach and put projects forward like HS2, which is going to cause your core green environmentalist um, standings, your members, to balk at and will probably, expel you from. Just like, you know, some of the people for Greens in Greens and HS2 have been. But Green Party, perfect. Anyway, in facing these choices, I return to the words of Yoda in The Last Jedi, where he said to Luke Skywalker to accept his own weakness and folly and failure and learn from it. Then why aren't you doing that within Labour? Because that would be a far better work of your time. And Corbynism's legacy is ultimately nothing but of failure and loss. Learning from this requires one to change, but also to simply repeat every Labour-centric strategies that led Corbynism into the abyss. Yeah, those very same strategies that if you do employ, you're also going to find that you lost as well, because You know, a lot of people said they couldn't trust Jeremy Corbyn. So the left can do nothing in Labour now. Again, not true. But lose over and over again. Again, not true. You would probably lose over and over again with the Greens, even more spectacularly. But there you go. You buy into that lie by all means. But with the Greens, it can make a real difference. So I am here back in the Greens. It was politically a choice based on principle, but I do agree with them on most things, and practically a pragmatic choice. They're the only viable force for my politics, but in the end, it was mostly definitely not a good choice. I only wish I had made it sooner. Hopefully, I can make up for lost time. Um, yeah, these are so rich. I'm sorry, but everything you've said there is completely ridiculous. The idea, once again, spinning the story that you can't be a leftist in Labour is not true. I've mentioned all the organisations that you can't work within Labour, that it's pointless. Labour for PR ultimately responsible for achieving that very thing that you mentioned about how getting PR at Labour conference, that was done by a group within Labour. But again, no, I think most of these people doing this are politically lazy. They are not prepared to put in the hard work. And some of these things have proved it from what she said in this. Let's just take a look at the comments. Be very interested in the comments from this. So I joined the Ecology Party in 1985, which changed its name to the Green Party later that year, and was actually an activist for 6 years until being until being treated by a rival of another member who had casually sabotaged everything I had tried to do and got me too much for me. So wait, this guy was a part of the Green Party who was sabotaged by another rival member. Green Party, perfect, guys. Anyway, um, most of the members locally in Brighton and Hove had come from the Labour Party, which looked unlikely to be transformed anytime soon. By Labour's Socialist Environmentalist and Resource Association, which is still going. Wow, an organisation like that can affect change. Wow. My oldest friend, still Labour activist and parish councillor, who served with them and with Breaks, is a local cycling campaign. We also long gave up trying to persuade each other to such parties, though he was very unhappy about, quote, Labour parachuting in an electoral candidate into his constituency whose CLP rebelled and was then excommunicated. Again, I don't think he was excommunicated. This whole idea that people were, quote, excommunicated, some of these people, it's actually very difficult to verify that they were, quote, excommunicated from Labour. He was also very unhappy at the aggressiveness of Momentum, the Corbynistas. Well, congratulations, because they're all coming to your party now, towards long-standing members like him. And now, with Labour's General Secretary, Devon Avis, as Starmer's number one choice and expeller of Corbyn. Why did he expel Corbyn? This is the thing that they don't seem to be saying. I have found myself moving in 2010 from Brighton Pavilion to Brighton Kemp Town, a marginal constituency, and I greatly miss being able to vote for Caroline Lucas, and was recently being forced to vote tactically. Around half a dozen local Greens have come from the Labour Party. They've switched enthusiastically back to Labour with the advent of Corbyn, but soon they were disillusioned by the aggressiveness of Momentum, and most of them quickly started drifting back to the Green Party. Wow, it's almost like there were bigger problems in Momentum than people want to really take credit for. And despite at last Labour's suddenly very green-looking agenda, this is counteracted by its sharp turn to the right under Starmer. Again, what has he turned right on? And of course, his rejection of proportional representation, despite it being wanted by a majority of Labour members and voters and CLPs, and now unions too. PR is not a priority for Starmer, who has expressly banned it from Labour manifestos. No, he hasn't, quote, expressly banned it from Labour manifestos. That's not true. It is all in the very likelihood this will just continue to build and build and build. And Labour for PR have said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to keep on campaigning for this. If you want this, then we have to get more MPs and in favour of PR. We have to get them in. Also, you've now got councils for PR. Also a movement backed by Labour for PR that is also getting councils to pass motions for a support for PR nationally. Again, impossible to work within the Labour Party. Anyway, so Labour under Starmer is continuing the old mode of a Tory-Labour duopoly. Elected on a minority of vote shares where Labour takes its turn in one election out of three, of course, this old chestnut, and our underrepresented undemocratic system of first past the post is perpetuated by extents of parties like the Lib Dems and Greens, who feel forced into tactical voting in marginals like mine, where UK elections are won and lost on the basis of a few 100,000 swing votes. Well, maybe, my friend, you need to join a PR campaign and, get out there and start campaigning for that. Just a bit of advice. So again, being hilarious because it's contradicted a lot from what this person has said above. There is some interesting points in here about the failure of Corbynism, but the bit about the lack of internal decision in the Green Party is nuts, isn't it? And then this was interesting. My patch Sheffield, much of the hard left Labour have either been expelled or left. Importantly, Momentum, at least in Sheffield, was never the hard left. Momentum was still more of the positioning vehicle for some councillors and hangers-on. The hard left were well organised around Sheffield Labour left, who are now Sheffield left. To some extent, Momentum were perceived as a bunch of softies. For us Sheffield Greens, the suspension of Alison Teal has deepened this cynicism and has long been seen there. The SGP now looks more like the Labour Party. I also make no secret that I am on Alison's side, and I observe the situation in the city, and it looks very much old-fashioned. It looks like an old-fashioned school fight. Make no mistake, the national leadership bears responsibility for this situation. Pity that we still have a significant presence in the major city that could also now be thrown away. Here's the thing about this. They are still all there. There is still a big lefty Labour coalition in Sheffield that, rather than balk at the idea that Starmer's in charge, they've now gone, okay, Starmer's in charge. We're going to now campaign and work internally with the Labour Party to, bring more left-wing stuff in. And then this is interesting. Well, here you have it. A self-confessed entryist. Does the Green Party really want to be taken over by Marxists and other associated Trots and Tankies that the Labour Party have expelled? Wow. The Greens would do well to avoid people like the plague. They are parasites, and as Fallen has recently confessed above, would rather have their own Marxist parties, but know that they would fall as soon as they made contact with the electorate. So the suitable host is now to subvert their Marxist agenda. One thing that unites both the red wall and blue wall seats is the rejection of far left ideology. Serious Green politicians will only be delivered by bringing about majority of votes. Becoming a vassal for the hard left ideologues to play out their revolutionary fantasies will be a disaster for the Green Party and the wider environmental movement. Do not let these cranks in. I am so glad that I am right. when I say this, because people don't believe me that this is what's going to happen to the Green Party. This guy is right. And then he quotes someone else here. Honestly, up until this comment, I was quite quietly curious. Now I'm sure the Green Party contains an element of horrible thoughtlessness, exactly like Labour. I've put hundreds of pounds into Labour coffers during Corbyn's leadership. I walked the streets and did everything I could. Why on earth would a left wing person subject themselves to people like you just that they could be slandered as Marxists? And someone else, no bitter infightings in the Greens, eh? I know, I laughed at that bit. But bitter, though, it is an understatement when it comes for the divisions in the Green Party, not to mention the attacks on democracy some of us have now witnessed. These divisions appear to be now better absorbed in a large party like Labour, but not a small one like the Greens. So here you have people who are like, no, you don't understand. There is like a massive bust up in the Greens at the moment. There is trust me, I am researching a lot of this stuff at the moment, and it's weirdly fascinating. But what this guy Nick said here, um, a self-confessed entryist. Does the Green Party really want to be taken over by Marxists and other associated Trots and Tankies that the Labour Party have expelled? And you've seen other people here saying, "Yeah, no, there's massive internal divisions in the Green Party. What are you talking about?" Um, so yeah, the Green Party, not all it's really cracked up to be. It turns out you scratch the surface, and there's more. There's a terrible stink that comes off the Green Party. Who'd have thought? Um, but of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.